Hi everybody, I'm TJ, this is Baby Star. Welcome back to this third part of this video about my egg donor journey. If you missed the start of this video, I'll put a link here to part 1 so that you can watch it. I'll also put a link in the description box. So it was the start of March 2021 and my embryos had arrived here in Australia from the World Egg Bank in Arizona on the other side of the world. And basically what I had to do now is just get my body ready so I could put this little beautiful embryo inside my womb. I was already in very good health because I'd been living a very healthy lifestyle for many, many years. Some of you know I used to have a journey with chronic pain, and as a result of that, I had done everything known to man to get myself healthy. And at this point in my journey, I was recovered and I was doing really, really well. The main doctor who I've had over the past 10 years is actually a functional medicine doctor who specializes in postpartum recovery after birth. So he was great to give me advice during this period and made sure I was taking lots of supplements that I needed. The main one that I personally needed was iron. Everything else I was pretty good on, so he made sure I was getting enough iron. So I felt very on top of that part. But I actually was a little bit overweight at the time, which I didn't care about because I didn't care about how I looked, but it was more that my feet were a bit sore. And I remember thinking, gosh, if I gain a whole lot of weight during my pregnancy, on top of this weight I'm already carrying, my poor feet are gonna really hurt. So I decided to actually knock some weight off before I did the embryo transfer so that I wouldn't be as heavy at the start of the pregnancy. I think I knocked off about 14 kilos, which is about 30 pounds, which is good because that's basically exactly what I gained in my pregnancy. So by the end of the pregnancy, now I'm at exactly the same weight as I was before all of this. But I'm glad because otherwise it would have been an extra 30 pounds and that would have been really hard on my poor old feet. And then the final thing I did to prepare, apart from taking supplements and dropping some weight off, was something called the ERA test. It's a special test you can do to test your uterus and the timing of implantation. When's going to be the best timing to implant the embryo for maximum success? I had heard about this test online and I didn't know if it was available in Australia, but my doctor actually said he was happy to do it. So basically it involves doing a dummy round. It's basically like a practice round before your real round. So you do everything you would normally do for your embryo transfer round. You start your cycle on day 1 when you get your period. On day 10, you do a scan. Then a few days later, you do a trigger shot, which causes you to ovulate. Then 7 days later, when normally you would implant the embryo in the embryo transfer, instead of doing that, they actually take on that day a small biopsy of your uterus and they test it to see if the uterus at that point would be ready for the embryo or not. It's actually a really clever test. And sometimes they find for say 20% of women, they're actually better off to implant a couple of days earlier or a couple of days later or 1 day earlier or 1 day later. Whereas 80% of women, the test shows, yeah, it's fine, just do it on the normal day. But I thought, you know what, I'm spending all this time, all this money. I only want to do this once. I'm 47. I don't want to mess around with this. It's worth doing this. There's a little bit of extra money for the test. And I'm going to make a video talking about all the costs of this whole thing. Once I've made that video, I'll put a link up here. But it's going to cost a little bit extra and cost me an extra month. But as I said, I kind of needed that extra month anyway to give the embryos time to arrive from America because they might not have got here in time. So I thought I'll do this dummy round and we'll do the ERA test and we'll find out really the exact optimum time to put this embryo in my womb. So I did my dummy round in February. My cycle started on the 1st of February 2021. We did the biopsy on the 15th of February. We got the results back 3 weeks later and it showed that my uterus was normal and that actually the normal standard timing of embryo transfer would work. If we had implanted on that date we did the biopsy, it would have been the right day. So that was really reassuring to know. I didn't feel that I wasted that money because for me, everything in life is about peace of mind. The more peace of mind I have, the more my body relaxes, the more my energy field relaxes, the more things tend to flow in my life and the more successful things are. And especially something like pregnancy, I feel like the calmer I am, the more I have peace of mind, the easier my pregnancy is going to go, the easier the implantation is going to go. So for me, it was 100% worth it to have that peace of mind because I knew now that when we did the real round the following month, I now knew that the date we were going to put the embryo in was the right date. So I could relax and just enjoy the ride. If you're finding this video helpful, please click like, give us a thumbs up because that will encourage YouTube to show this video to more women like you who are interested in IVF, interested in using donor eggs. So then basically during this month of this dummy round, I had this one last month before I was going to be doing the embryo transfer and possibly starting a pregnancy and then having babies. It was kind of like my last month as a single baby-free, pregnant-free person. So what I decided to do in that month was to do something that had always been on my bucket list, which was actually to be the MC of this giant festival that happens here that I absolutely love. Big, huge, beautiful festival. And I've always wanted to be the MC for it, and I had been asked to do it, and it happened to fall in that month just before the embryo transfer. And I thought, this is going to be my last hurrah, because when again am I going to be able to do something like MC a giant festival? I won't be able to do that while I'm carrying a baby or while I'm pregnant. So I did it. It was really beautiful. And actually on the big Saturday night of that festival, I think it was actually the equinox that night, and I was running a ceremony for the equinox. And we were doing this big sacred ceremony with hundreds of people, and out of my mouth blurted out something about, and I'm also setting an intention for myself that my IVF next month is going to go well. And I somehow blurted out to 350 people that I was about to do IVF. Something that I had been keeping secret from my whole community. It really was only something I was telling people in my small baby village, my close friends. And I just blurted it out of my mouth. So there we go. So now everybody knew I was doing it. And in a way that was good, because it really made it real, you know. Everyone was coming up to me the next day of the festival. Wow, this is so exciting. I can't believe you're doing this by yourself. Good on you. How exciting that you're doing it at your age. Wow, this is amazing. I can't believe you're doing this. Like, I just got even more love and more encouragement coming from everyone. So I was glad I did that. And then on the last day of the festival, which was Monday the 22nd of March, I got my period. Now that may not seem like a big deal, but what it meant was this was the start of my real round of embryo transfer. And it also could possibly be the last period I ever have in my whole life. Because think about it. I was about to put in an embryo from a 22-year-old egg, which was highly likely to be successful, possibly get pregnant, probably have a child, and then breastfeed for however long. And at my age, I was then going to be 48. And at that age, it's highly likely I would just slide on into menopause and never have another period. And actually, she's now 10 months old, and I actually haven't had my period back yet because I'm still breastfeeding, and I don't know if I'm going to get it back. I might just slide into menopause. So that period I got on the 22nd of March, 2021, might really actually have turned out to be my last ever period. At the time it happened, I thought it might be. So pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And if you're someone considering having a baby, I actually encourage you to subscribe to this channel, because I make a video every single week, and in a lot of them I'm talking about what it's like having a baby, what it's like being an older mama with a baby, what it's like being a single mama with a baby, and just what it's like having a new baby in your life. So if you do subscribe, make sure to click the little notification bell, because then you'll get notified every week when I make a video. So on the 31st of March 2021, I was in my cycle. I had my day 10 scan. He looked at the number of follicles I had and at my uterine lining, the lining of my uterus, and it all looked good. He decided that we should do the trigger shot on the night of Friday, the 2nd of April. Basically, they do a trigger shot because it causes your body to ovulate, and then they can time the putting in of the embryo exactly relative to that moment of ovulation. So instead of them kind of guessing when you ovulate and trying to time the embryo a certain number of days after this guessed ovulation, they use a trigger shot which forces the ovulation. They know exactly when the ovulation is, and they know exactly when to implant the embryo. And because I'd done the ERA test, we knew exactly how long after ovulation I needed to implant the embryo, so that's why it was important that I did a trigger shot. This was actually a really, really intense week for me, this first week of the cycle when all this was happening with the trigger shot, because on the same day that I did the trigger shot, I actually flew to Melbourne, my home city, a couple of hours from here, where I grew up, in order to do a very incredibly sad ceremony for me, which was the consecration of my mother's headstone in the cemetery. I had actually spent the last 2 years designing this incredibly beautiful headstone, and they were finally going to put it in the cemetery at her grave, and we had a ceremony to consecrate that headstone. So it was really beautiful, and I really wanted to do it before I had this embryo put inside me, because I thought once this embryo is here, I don't want to be flying, I don't want to be going through massive grief, I don't want to be crying, I don't want to be dealing with all the family. I need to be in peace for the 2-week wait and in peace for the first few months of my pregnancy. So I did everything I could to make this happen, to get this headstone ready and organize the family and everything, even though we were still in COVID and it was all very challenging before the embryo transfer. So it actually happened in the week just before the embryo transfer. So the day that I did the trigger shot was the day that I arrived back in my hometown. It was on a Friday. I spent Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday there. We had the ceremony. It was all incredibly moving, incredibly powerful, and I'm so glad we did it. I'm so glad we did it before the whole journey started with the pregnancy, so it was really, really worked out well. So then I flew back here after all of that on Tuesday, the 6th of April. And 3 days later was the big day. 3 days later was the 9th of April, the day that they put the embryo into my body. 3 days later was the day you and I came together for the first time when they put you inside my body. And you and I became one being for 9 whole months. It was a very magical day. I told everybody in my baby village the date and time that they were going to do the embryo transfer so that they could all send love and energy to me and to the embryo so that it would work. So that was really beautiful. And the morning of the embryo transfer, I woke up to so many messages, encouraging messages, supportive messages from everyone in my baby village, from my family, from my friends. It was so beautiful. I drove up this 40-minute trip to the Gold Coast just feeling really, really excited and just full of awe and wonder at what was happening. It was amazing. But of course, I am blonde, and I got lost somehow on the way to the embryo transfer. My GPS sent me the wrong place. I've been driving around freeways, completely lost. I was on the phone to the clinic, like, please tell me how to get there. I don't know where I am. I'm driving around these freeways. So I actually turned up to the embryo transfer quite stressed, which is very unlike me. I'm a very calm person. But I was like, I'm late for my embryo transfer. I'm gonna miss it. And the whole thing's been timed for this trigger shot. It's gonna be like a military operation, and I'm late because I got lost. That was a little bit stressful. Let me know in the comments if you can imagine how stressed I was getting there late to my embryo transfer because I got lost. And if you've ever had something like that go wrong in the middle of your IVF round. Anyway, I got there. In the end, I was very late, but they told me it was okay. I hadn't missed it. They were still going to go ahead. And yes, I just need to calm my heart right down. They were just like, relax. Take a few minutes to pull yourself together. It's no hurry. We want you to be calm for this embryo transfer. So luckily I'm a naturally calm person, so I was able to calm myself down. And then something really quite miraculous happened. I'll never forget this. They introduced me to the embryologist. Now remember, I've been dealing with Brian, the embryologist at the World Egg Bank, and my previous IVF attempt the previous year had been with the male embryologist, so I was expecting a male embryologist, right? This woman walks out who kind of looks like me. She's tall. She's got long blonde hair. She's got green eyes, right? Anyway, she pulls out my file. She's like, hang on a sec, you and I have the same birthday. I was like, what? She and I have the same birthday? Could you get a bigger sign that I'm meant to have this embryologist? She basically looks like me. She's born on 25th of May, just like me. So she and I were like, wow, this is a really good sign. And then I said to her, which embryo are you going to implant out of the 3? And she said, do you have a preference? And I was like, this is going to sound crazy, but I want to use number 5 because number 5 is my favorite number. So I was born on the 25th of the 5th. My house number growing up was 25. My home phone number growing up started with 5. I'm a 5 life number. I'm a 32-5. And my human design is 5-1. So I was like, I've got to use that 5th egg that's got a number 5 on it. And then she said, well, it's interesting that you picked number 5 because that's actually the best embryo. That's the best looking embryo. Because basically they grade embryos. They give you a number and then 2 letters. My 3 embryos were a 4AB, a 4AB, and a 5BB. The 2 4AB ones were day 5 embryos and the other one was a day 6 embryo. And basically the number refers to how much the embryo has expanded at that point in its journey. The first letter represents the quality of the inside part of the embryo, the part that's going to become the fetus. And the second letter represents the quality of the outside part of the embryo that's going to become the placenta. So obviously like a 5AA or something is really, really good. But an AB is also considered very good. The bottom line is even if you got a C, those embryos can still change and improve over the coming days. So lots of people have implanted C embryos and still had a perfectly healthy pregnancy. So it doesn't really mean that much, but it's just something that people cling to. People cling to it, don't they? I just decided to bypass all that, just choose number 5 because it was my favorite number. And look what happened. Look who got born from number 5. Little nung nung nung. Little nung nung nung. You got born from number 5. That was you were number 5. I'm so glad I picked number 5. So basically, I picked the embryo that I wanted them to use, and then I left the embryologist. I got into my surgical gown. I went into the room for the embryo transfer, and I'll tell you in the next video, the final video, what happened during the embryo transfer and what happened during my 2-week wait. Big love to all of you mamas, all of you future mamas. Let us know in the comments where you're at in your baby dream. We just want to send you so much love, so much baby dust. Big love from us. See you in the next video. Bye.